We do have Caroline Cummings also here talking with us. Caroline has spent a lot of time with Representative Hortman covering that special session there, very late nights. Caroline, I know, are you there with us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Caroline, you know, I know you've been talking to legislators all throughout the morning. I mean, just thinking about Representative Hortman as not just a colleague, but as a friend of theirs. I mean, what is the feeling right now?
I put it this way to somebody who asked me, my own mom, how I was doing, which, you know, Melissa Hortman was a mother, and I'm feeling for her children. Anguish, shock, horror. These are people who, excuse me while I collect myself here. I've covered legislatures my whole career in Iowa and Minnesota. And these are people who get into this work because they care about making people's lives better. And nobody cared more about that than the speaker. And I've been struck in a way that's gotten me so emotional, really, is the way that Republicans and Democrats alike are mourning her loss. And that is it feels so needed in this moment because politics feels so divisive. I have people ask me all the time, Caroline, how do you cover politics? It's so hard. And I like to say that there's a lot of things you don't see that are really good. And something that the Speaker Emeritus said often was, because I think people have been remarking about how she was very funny, and she would make little quips to reporters, sometimes on and off camera, and that kind of relationship humanized her. It humanized us to lawmakers when we could have those moments, because at the end of the day, we are people, even if our relationship is to cover these people and hold them accountable, right? But she would also always talk about, you know, the boring, bipartisan, good government stuff sometimes doesn't get the headlines. It's the bitter divide. It's the DFL boycott of the beginning of session that happened earlier this year. That might get all the headlines, but that kind of masks the reality of the relationships that people share. I have a comment that just came up on X from Representative Nolan West of Blaine, that he shared an anecdote about how he disagreed with her on so much policy, but her last interaction with her was they were in a meeting during these budget negotiations, and she was, you know, he was fighting very strongly for his position on something, and she was thoughtful, he says, and found a way to find a solution. And he said, quote, "She was a real human, and you don't always find that in high-profile politicians." And then he went on to say, "Her absence will be felt for years in the House." And I think that kind of sums up whether I've been talking to Republican lawmakers in both chambers or DFL lawmakers who, you know, had so much respect for her in the House. I mean, so much respect for her. She was very much their guiding light in so many ways. They all have the same words to say of her. They respected how she carried herself. They respected how she treated them in negotiations, how she treated them with decency. I think it was GOP Speaker Lisa Dameth who described her as having shaped her leadership in a way. You know, a funny anecdote that I really love to tell, and I've been telling it for a few months actually, is that sometimes they would text each other, House Speaker Lisa Dameth and Speaker Emerita Hortman, about what they were wearing that day because they had some of the same blazers and outfits. And I just love that because I thought, you know, look, they will fight vigorously for their positions. There will be real partisan battles that play out on the floor, but a little moment of, are we going to show up in the same outfit today, was a heartening moment that really says a lot about what this is all about, which is that these are elected officials, but they are people, and everybody is mourning her loss at the Minnesota legislature.
Caroline, did any of the lawmakers that you've spoken with today also talk about not only being in mourning, but also fearful for not only themselves, but their families? You mentioned how many of these lawmakers have children at home.
Yeah. And some of them have young children, and I've talked to some of them with young children who their children were actually out of town, up in on vacation, family vacation, cabin, and they were breathing a sigh of relief that their children weren't in their home last night. And when you think about that, it's like, if you're a mom, you want to be with your children. You probably miss them deeply when they're gone. But this is an instant where you were happy that they weren't there in the event that this person, the suspect, could have come and done the same thing to them. That is as visceral of a feeling that somebody can capture, really. And I think there is a lot of fear. I mean, that we heard it from law enforcement and the governor that this individual allegedly had this manifesto where he was detailing who else was on his list, and that is unnerving. And I think something that we heard from on our air a little bit ago is really telling about kind of the state of affairs, but also who Melissa Hortman was. Former DFL Majority Leader Ryan Winkler, who worked closely alongside Melissa Hortman for a few years when she was the Speaker of the House and he was the Majority Leader, that he talked about how she was always concerned for her members, legislator in her caucus and in the Republican caucus, for their safety. She stopped doing overnight debates if she could avoid it, sending people home because she was worried, would they get home safely? There's definitely been conversations around the Capitol about security in the actual building, because if you've ever been, you can walk right in and it's very accessible, and that's beautiful for your seat of your government to be accessible to the people. But it's also frightening to people who work there because of the really fraught moment that we are in. So her looking out for others in their safety in the legislature, I feel like illustrates really, how she had care for the lawmakers, but also the nonpartisan staff. There's tons of people you never hear about in the news that do a lot of the hard work behind the scenes, and she was concerned for their safety as well. So a lot of people just totally in shock, angry, anxious, and just a feeling of profound sadness.
You sort of touched on this, but these lawmakers, we don't hear about it all the time, deal with threats on a very frequent basis, whether it's DFL or Republican, and it's very difficult for them to know, is this a hollow threat or is this something serious that I should be considered about? Do I need to take extra precautions? Do I need to have security on a more regular basis?
Right. And I think there is this feeling in Minnesota in a beautiful way in some ways, but maybe in a scary, disarming way in others, of the Minnesota nice of it all, that this can't happen here, where Minnesotans are trusting of people and don't think they would need to take such a step. I can see a universe in which that these lawmakers would feel that way, that because they are very trusting. Minnesotans are very trusting of people, and you don't know, because you do have. There's been plenty of threats to individuals, not necessarily maybe in Minnesota, but elsewhere, that have turned out to be just that, threats. I'm sure there's other things we have not ever heard about in terms of threats to their safety, but I think the concern has always been there. And I think this is truly a shock to the system about, how this could happen, and also just being mindful of how much, they're in the public eye. They are in the headlines, they are on our air, they're printed in the papers, and there's a certain amount of risk that always comes with being a public figure, and people who run for office recognize that, and their families also recognize that. But it has become more concerning and frightening to people in recent years, with the higher frequency of attacks or threats that we have seen against elected officials. And as everybody has said, no matter if you are a Republican or Democrat, political violence is not okay. And if you needed any more of a reminder, this morning's events are definitely that reminder.
Caroline, we're looking right now at a photograph of Representative Hortman and her husband. I mean, this almost seems sort of next level. We talk about Senator Hoffman, we talk about Representative Hortman, but also their spouses there too. I mean, this person also took out their family. And we understand that many of the legislators now have security from law enforcement there, have law enforcement sitting in their driveways right now.
Or they may have moved to a different location.
But, you know, we're very early in this right now, but I do imagine there are going to be a lot of conversations moving forward about security, about safety, as we continue these conversations.
Yeah, and I really love that you brought up the spouses, because they sacrifice so much for their spouse to be in that position. If you're thinking of both Senator Hoffman and Melissa Hortman, they have been in negotiations almost around the clock for the past 3 weeks until that special session happened on Monday to get that budget done. And you're giving up, you know, dinners with your family, especially in those, you know, last few weeks where they're really hammering things out. You're giving up your weekends. I remember Majority Leader Erin Murphy, when they didn't get the budget done in time in May, had to cancel her cabin weekend with her family. That this is all showcases how much a spouse has to support an elected official in that moment. And I know Melissa Hortman was deeply devoted to her husband and her family, and she loved her dog. And so it's just a reminder that, you know, they've given a lot too, and we should, you know, honor and hold space for their lives as well.
All right, Caroline Cummings, we appreciate you coming to talk a little bit about your experience with these lawmakers and what you're hearing from others today as they deal with this sad news.
Right.